Welcome back. This morning we're breaking down the results of the Texas primary runoffs. Joining us on the roundtable, KUT's Ben Philpott and Bob Garrett with the Dallas Morning News. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
What was your biggest surprise of the primary runoff night, Bob?
Well, the margin of Dan Patrick's victory. I don't think any of us thought that he would win by 30 points.
What about you?
Well, maybe then Ryan Sitton winning the railroad commissioner race. He had a lot of money, but he wasn't, a unanimous Tea Party choice. So him being able to win and win handily, 20 points or so, that was probably a big surprise.
Yeah, who is this guy?
Well, he's a guy who was able to get the right endorsements and get the right amount of money. So it's a down ballot race. Not anybody really knew who the different candidates were. And the Tea Party was split on it. A lot of Tea Party groups were backing his opponent, Wayne Christian, and then some of the more key ones in Harris County, in the Houston area, where there's a lot of oil and gas industry, gave him the endorsement. And he won by 100,000 votes. 40,000 of that margin came in Harris County.
Who would have thought Republican voters would recognize that regulating oil and gas and pipelines has nothing to do with abortion, which, of course, Wayne Christian ran heavily on.
He was the only Christian on the ballot, I hear.
And very much on abortion.
What about how Democrats are going to stack up in November now? Any of the Republican candidates that made it through the runoff you think might give Democrats a run for their money, or maybe give Democrats an edge?
Well, the one that gets the most attention is Patrick's opponent, Letitia Van de Putte, because Patrick presumably will help drive turnout among two key constituencies, and one is women, younger women who don't vote in midterm elections, and Patrick's efforts on abortion and family planning and just budget cuts in general might be enough to rally them. The other is the Hispanic vote, and Letitia Van de Putte is putting Letitia in big letters on all her signs.
And we saw this week the first email out, her trumpeting a prominent, as she called it, prominent business Republican backing her for the lieutenant governor race. And my guess is we'll see emails like that every week between now and the November election.
You mentioned Dewhurst. So when Perry leaves his long era of Texas politics, he might run for president. But Dewhurst, what's he going to do now? And he's not really leaving. He's forced to leave, right?
That's right. I don't think he didn't rule out totally another race, but after 2 defeats in a row at age 68, it's hard to see the comeback scenario.
I think somebody said, it may have been you last week, that he's going to now focus on making more money for his business. He has spent a lot of his own money over the last 3 or 4 years, losing 2 elections, and so maybe he's going to go take care of that for a while now.
Dewhurst Patrick was the nastiest race of the runoff, I think. What do you think is going to be the nastiest race for the general?
Well, I would just say Paxton Branch was not exactly tame, but by comparison, yeah. I don't know on the general. I tend to think the lieutenant governor's race will be slightly more civil because Letitia Van de Putte drew a 4-year term. She'll be back if she loses. I don't know about the Wendy Davis-Abbott thing. That might really go toxic.
Well, depending on your point of view, it's already a little toxic with abortion Barbie being used a lot, right. Not by the Abbott campaign, but by Abbott supporters, and of course, well, I think that one's going to be the ugliest. And I agree, the lieutenant governor race may be tame because not only is Letitia Van de Putte still going to have to work with Dan Patrick if she loses, but Dan Patrick and the Republicans know that Democrats are hoping he'll stumble and hoping he'll make a mistake, and to remain calm might limit that.
Based on the way the general seems to be shaping up with the Republicans, who many of them will likely make it onto the session, many of them Tea Party candidates, how do you think next session is going to be?
Well, they're already starting to posture about tax cuts. The state Senate is going to be a lot more conservative. You kind of have an interesting situation with the Speaker of the House and his team, which includes Democrats being more moderate than either the incoming governor or the incoming Texas Senate.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll be arranged. You've already seen the Speaker Strauss come out with an idea for using some of the revenue, some of the surplus that we're expected to have going into the next session to fix some budget accounting tricks that they've been using to balance the budget over the last decade or so. And that's him kind of putting down his marker as, let's not talk about tax cuts, let's talk about truing up the budget and working on investments within the state.
And on highways, that's the key there. He was talking about not ending the diversion of highway tax money to other purposes.
We've got the big highway issue that's coming up in November as well. How do you think that's going to fare, since we are already talking about candidates? What about that issue?
Usually it takes a some disgruntled millionaire or some well-funded anti-tax or anti-constitutional amendment group to beat one. I don't see that necessarily out there, and if it doesn't appear, that thing will pass.
What about you think?
Yeah, I would assume it would probably pass. The water constitutional amendment that we had last year was kind of a test balloon on that. Also something that most Tea Party groups, were not in favor of, but it easily passed. This one, we do have a general election going on around it, so with a lot of Tea Party candidates on the ballot, so that might change the turnout a little bit, but it'll probably pass.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Republicans and highways, right?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. Coming up, it's the end of an era in Texas politics. We sit down with Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst when State of Texas In Depth returns.
Isn't about who's more conservative.